The Thing in the Alley. Written by NickTBA. I live in a first-floor apartment with a window facing the alleyway. There's a narrow passage between my building and the next, which keeps the two separated. It would be unsafe if there wasn't access to my apartment from the alley, but there's a tall fence at the mouth of the passage, and the passage itself is narrow enough that I don't think anyone could squeeze through it without hurting themselves. At least, I didn't think that until last week. So, I was walking around my apartment, thinking about exercising, but not actually doing it, pacing by the lone window in my unit, and glancing through the passage out to the alley proper. I often see people moving through the alleyway. There's a bar nearby, and another apartment complex on this same block, so it's not unheard of. Well, I used to see people, but I haven't seen anything like that lately, for obvious reasons. No, in fact, it's been pretty quiet outside at night. I sometimes will hear a rustle and see one of the homeless people that dominates my neighborhood digging through the trash cans. But, as I was saying, last week, I saw someone standing out there, but it wasn't the usual crowd. The bar was closed, and something about them just told me they weren't homeless. I don't know the best way to describe it, but they were naked. At least, it looked like they were naked from where I was standing. The light in the alley is faint. A lone bulb out there, and their body was kind of half hidden by the wall. The person was just there, staring down my little passage, right at my window, at me. It freaked me out enough that I shut my blind. The long vertical kind that always get hung up and caught on each other whenever you try to turn them flat. I never shut my blinds. I ignored it. Not worth getting freaked out about, I thought. The quarantine had been bringing out the weirdest of people lately, I'd noticed. Anyway, I wasn't concerned because the passage was too narrow for anyone to get through. As I said, my windows were thick and locked. And this was all assuming they got over the fence to begin with. During the day, I get a little stir-crazy, so I've taken to doing a walk around my block at least once a day. I've been able to hear construction from my apartment, so I knew something was going on, but I was still surprised to see them renovating the apartment block behind me. I thought all work like that had stopped for the time being. It was an old building, so I wasn't too surprised they were fixing it. What did surprise me was the fact it was a complete gutting from head to toe. I could look through the windows of the building and see the floor ripped up, exposing ancient ground beneath the city that probably hadn't been seen since the 20s. The next night, a bowl of popcorn in my hands as I sat down on the couch to watch a movie. I saw the person outside my window again. I could see them a little better this time. It was a man, I think. Their frame was gaunt, a withered husk, and I could definitely tell that they were naked now. I closed my blinds again and just tried to ignore it. If I saw them again, I'd call the police. At least, that's what I told myself at the time. Except it happened again the next night. I didn't want to bother the police, knowing they had so much worse things to deal with currently than a naked homeless man. This time, I just stared him down, waiting for him to leave. He was as still as a statue, so I flipped him off, closed my blinds, and gave up. Again, trying to occupy my time, I spent the next morning cleaning. As I watered the plants on my windowsill, I looked out and noticed trash in my passage. That wasn't uncommon. I'd seen it before. Neighbors above me just dropping shit down, I assumed. or maybe trash from the alley getting funneled down the passage by the wind. But what really got me bothered was the candy wrapper, smashed into a puddle of mucky gravel and mud by a human footprint. Nothing could make me think differently. I was sure it was a footprint. I called the police. They told me it didn't sound like an emergency and that it was a problem for management. So I called management, and they assured me that it wasn't a footprint, that no one could get into the passage. With that, they treated me like that was the end of the conversation. The alley creeper was there again that night. I opened my window to yell at him, but he didn't move a muscle. He just stared at me with hollow eyes. His bony frame looked like it struggled for every breath. I could see the skin stretch thin over his ribcage with each breath, and his knife-sharp pelvic bones looked like they were going to slice through his hips. I struggled to sleep that night, thinking about that skinny frame. I wondered if it was thin enough to squeeze down the passageway to my apartment. I checked the passage the next morning. I noticed dirty smudges on the stonework on either side of the walls. It was a dark substance, and there were trails of it along the entire length of the passage. I opened my window to peek out. It was blood. I could tell by the bits of flesh stuck to the coagulated fluid. The passage was too small to fit down, but that didn't mean someone hadn't tried. I called management again, but by the time they came, rain had came down and spattered away much of the evidence. I begged them to check the security camera in the alleyway. They promised to do so, but I never heard back until that night. My late night stalker was outside again. They stared right at me, their shoulders ragged, torn, and stained red. I grabbed a wooden dowel that was my closet rod and wedged it into my window frame, then closed the blinds. Sitting up on my couch the entire night with a baseball bat in my hands. I had passed out at some point, because I woke up and the bat was on the ground. I immediately ran to the window. The brick walls down the passage were marred more than ever with blood and bits of viscera. I screamed at the sight of the red handprint on the outside of my white windowsill. There was a voicemail from my landlord. The worry in his voice was palpable. The camera only picked up the edge of my passageway, but he was confident he could see someone twist awkwardly and fit into the passage. I'm waiting for the police to come now. I told them about the video and the handprint, but the rain is coming again. I can hear it pelting the passageway through my window. If the police can't help me, I'm stuck here with nowhere else to go. We'll see how close my visitor gets tonight.